Have you ever sent a message that felt more like a question about who you are than a simple text? You type, pause, reread, you delete, you type again. You wonder if a few words could change how someone sees you, or worse, how you see yourself. Then you hit send, and silence follows. Not rejection, not connection, just silence. The kind that rewires your self-worth in real time. And suddenly, you're not waiting for her response. You're waiting to feel like you're enough again. But here's the part no one talks about. She's not ignoring you. She's reading your energy. Because in today's world, texting isn't just communication. It's projection. It's the echo of who you are when you're not in the room. Most men don't realize this. They send more. They explain. They soften. They ask again. And with every word, they lose presence. Because the truth is, when you text from fear, from craving, from chaos, you turn your own words into white noise. Let me say this clearly. It's not the message that turns her off. It's the energy behind it. The harder you try to prove your value through a screen, the more invisible you become. Why? Because women don't respond to need. They respond to gravity, stillness, intention. And that's what this video is about. You're not here to chase validation through clever phrases or emoji tricks. You're here to reclaim narrative control, to stop texting for replies and start texting with presence. If you've ever felt like your words were ignored, it's not because they weren't good enough. It's because they weren't anchored in who you truly are. And today we change that. We live in an age where the typing bubble holds more emotional power than most conversations, where someone's silence after "seen at 10:47 p.m." feels like a verdict, where one-word replies echo louder than paragraphs once did. And in this strange digital arena, men are losing more than connection. They're losing clarity. You see, when a woman leaves you on red, it's not just the message she's ignoring. It's the version of you that needed her response to feel certain. This is the invisible pain of modern communication. It's not just ghosting, it's ghost feedback. You say something genuine, you wait, but what comes back isn't a reply. It's a void, a vacuum that you try to fill with overthinking. You spiral, you check the timestamp, you analyze the tone, you revise the message you already sent as if rewriting it in your head will change what never came. But here's the harsh truth. The more you react to that void, the more you lose yourself in it. Because digital silence is not passive, it's a mirror. And what most men see in that mirror is their need for control dressed up as kindness, their anxiety dressed up as interest, their craving dressed up as care. They text again not because they want to connect, but because they can't stand the reflection. This is where men today are bleeding energy, through the screen. Not by saying too much, but by needing too much. The scroll loop becomes a trap. The highlight reel becomes a trigger. And what once was communication becomes comparison, desperation, and slow erosion of self-respect. But what if we flip this? What if that silence wasn't rejection, but redirection? What if instead of chasing a reply, you reclaimed your presence? That's where Stoicism begins. Not with control, but with self-containment. The ability to hold space instead of collapsing into it. To feel the discomfort without needing to end it. Because sometimes the most powerful text is the one you don't send. Most men think that if they can just say the right thing, they'll get the response they want. That there's a perfect combination of charm, timing, and cleverness that will unlock connection. But here's the problem. Texting isn't about the words you choose. It's about the energy you carry. And the moment you type with the goal of convincing, you've already lost the clarity that could have made her curious. Let's strip this down to something true. Your words don't move her. Your weight does. Not the weight of drama or over-effort, but the quiet gravity of someone who doesn't need the moment to prove their worth. Texting isn't a stage, it's a mirror. Every sentence you send reflects who you are or who you're pretending to be. You see, the Stoics taught us something few modern men apply: speak only if it improves the silence. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not necessary, do not say it." That applies to texting more than ever. Most men text to fill space. The Stoic man texts to create space. That space, it's not emptiness. It's tension. It's subtle power. When you can leave something unsaid, on purpose, you don't create confusion. You create anticipation. That anticipation, when earned, becomes attraction. An attraction born of restraint always lasts longer than attraction born of effort. Here's the shift. It's not about being more impressive. It's about being more intentional. When a woman reads your message, she isn't just reading your words. She's feeling your need, your confidence, your timing. And whether you know it or not, she's responding not to your phrasing, but to your self-possession. That's what separates the man who texts and waits nervously from the man whose message lingers in her mind. One needs a reaction. The other holds his frame. So stop asking, "What should I say?" Start asking, "What does my presence say?" before the words even land. Because in a world where most men try to be loud with charm, the quiet one with clarity is unforgettable. Curiosity is the oxygen of human connection. Not clarity, not explanation, not how nice or thoughtful your message is. What holds someone's attention isn't how much you give, it's how much you hold back. And yet, this is where most men fail. They text as if they're writing resumes, facts, polite greetings, updates, all wrapped in logic. And logic, when not laced with emotion or mystery, is forgettable. A message like "Hope your day is going well" sounds kind, sounds safe, but it doesn't open a loop in her mind. It doesn't make her pause. It doesn't make her need to reply. Now contrast that with a simple shift. "Something today reminded me of you in the weirdest way." Do you feel that? That quiet mental itch, that tension created by what's missing? That's open-loop gravity, and it's irresistible when it's real. The brain is wired to close loops. When a message creates a gap, an incomplete picture, the mind wants to fill it. It leans in. That's why cliffhangers work. That's why we binge shows. And that's why some texts get immediate replies while others die in silence. Not because they were bad, but because they were complete. Stoicism teaches us restraint not just in reaction, but in revelation. You don't owe anyone a full explanation. You owe the moment your full presence. And presence doesn't mean you speak more. It means you know when to pause. Marcus Aurelius never wrote to persuade. He wrote to reflect, and that reflection made his words timeless. So how do you apply this? Don't lead with statements. Lead with questions disguised as stories. Don't say, "I had a weird dream." Say, "You showed up in my dream last night and did something I did not expect." Let her ask. Let her lean forward. And when she does, don't answer all at once. You don't want a conversation that ends. You want one that unfolds. If she asks, "What happened?" you respond, "Let me ask you something first. Have you ever had someone cross your mind right before something completely unexpected happened?" That's not a trick. That's creating co-experience. You're not just texting anymore. You're storytelling with emotional velocity. And what happens next is subtle. She begins to associate you with tension, with intrigue, with questions that pull her into your world, not facts that explain yours. And that's the essence of emotional connection. Shared curiosity, not shared clarity. But here's the warning. Don't fake mystery. Don't use this like a tactic. Women feel the difference between manufactured depth and embodied stillness. The Stoic approach to texting isn't clever. It's clear. You're not trying to get attention. You're anchoring presence. Ask yourself this before you hit send. Does this open a question in her mind, or does it close the loop completely? Because if it doesn't create tension, it disappears. If it doesn't spark curiosity, it fades into digital static. The man who creates mystery through restraint, not performance, is the man who lingers long after the conversation ends. Not because he said more, but because he understood the most powerful texts are not what you say, but what you don't have to explain. And in a world where most men overshare in order to feel seen, you become unforgettable by leaving space for her to step in. If curiosity gets her attention, anticipation makes her stay. Curiosity is the spark, but anticipation is the gravity that pulls her closer before anything even happens. And in the digital world, anticipation is a rare art, because most men ruin it without knowing. They give away the answer too quickly. They rush to reveal the plan, the surprise, the emotion. And in doing so, they rob the moment of tension. Texting works like storytelling, and every great story has timing, a build-up, a beat of silence, a pause before the reveal. But most men, they send it all in one message. I got you something. Can't wait to take you out Friday. I've been thinking about you a lot lately. The intention might be pure, but the delivery is flat. There's no anticipation. There's no space for her imagination to enter the frame. Now contrast that with this. Something today reminded me of you, and I'll bet you won't guess what it was. She's not just reading anymore. She's wondering. She's leaning. She's engaged. You've created what psychologists call a dopamine gap, the emotional space between the teaser and the reveal, where curiosity grows into desire. Anticipation isn't manipulation, it's maturity. It's knowing that not everything needs to be given immediately. In fact, what's given too fast is often forgotten just as fast. Stoicism calls this delayed gratification. Epictetus wrote that true strength lies in the ability to wait, without attachment to the outcome. When you delay the reveal, you don't lose power, you gain presence. So how does this look in practice? Instead of texting, I have something to tell you, you say, if I told you what I realized about you today, you wouldn't believe me. Then pause, let her respond. If she says, tell me, you respond, I could, but where's the fun in that? Take a wild guess. You've now shifted from message to mental game. A game that isn't about winning, but deepening connection through shared investment. And here's where most men miss the mark. They think giving more creates closeness, but in reality, it's the gaps that create gravity. The pause, the tease, the intentional restraint. These aren't tricks. These are psychological rituals of emotional presence. The moment she checks her phone not to be updated, but to see if you said something, that's when anticipation has done its job. You're no longer just a text on her screen. You're a feeling in her body. You're a pulse in her imagination. But one rule must be clear. Anticipation must be clean. Never manipulative. Never used to provoke insecurity or create confusion. This is not about control. This is about intention. You create space not to pull her emotionally, but to honor the pace of something real, something respectful, something she remembers not because of what you said, but because of how you made her feel waiting for it. Ask yourself, am I texting to impress or am I creating emotional rhythm? The first gets attention. The second builds attachment. Because in the age of speed, the one who knows how to slow things down wins depth. Let her wonder. Let her imagine. Let her lean in. That's how emotional gravity is formed, not by your words, but by the pause you were strong enough to hold. Most men believe that compliments are the gateway to attraction. Say something nice and she'll like you more. Be sweet and she'll stay. But the truth is, she doesn't remember the compliment. She remembers the energy behind it. She remembers how it made her feel about herself. Not how much you liked her, but how clearly you saw her. This is where most men fail. They compliment what's obvious, what everyone can see. You're beautiful. You're stunning. You're perfect. These words might sound nice, but they're hollow, not because they're false, but because they're common. And what is common rarely feels valued. A woman doesn't want to be admired like a painting. She wants to be recognized, like a signal only you picked up on. The man who understands this doesn't just give compliments. He gives reflection. He says, "I noticed the way you spoke to that waiter. There's something deeply calming in how you carry yourself." Or, "Most people talk over others when they're excited, but you listen harder. That's rare." Now she's not just being seen, she's being studied, understood. And in that moment, your words do more than flatter. They create intimacy, because real compliments don't chase approval. They anchor presence. Seneca once wrote, "We should praise not what is common, but what is rare." And in today's world, what's rare is depth, stillness, self-awareness, integrity. The compliment that lands isn't the loudest, it's the most precise. The one that feels earned, not performed. So how does this apply to texting? It starts with restraint. Don't send throwaway validation just to keep her attention. Wait, observe, then speak to something she doesn't even realize is valuable yet. If she opens up about her past, don't say, "That must have been hard." Say, "Most people don't share that." I respect the clarity it takes to own your own story. If she talks about her goals, don't just say, "That's amazing." Say, "You don't just dream, you move." That's a rare kind of discipline. These kinds of messages don't just make her smile, they make her pause. And in a world where attention is currency, the pause you create is the value you bring. But here's the key: timing. Compliments lose power when they're forced, when they come too fast, when they feel rehearsed. A well-timed observation, spoken with quiet weight, will always hit deeper than a list of praises shouted into the void. And perhaps the greatest shift of all, your compliment should reveal your values, not just her traits. When you admire her calm, her clarity, her discipline, you're showing what you stand for. You're declaring the kind of presence you respect. And that declaration tells her more about you than any biography ever could. So before you text that next compliment, ask yourself, is this to impress or to express? Am I proving I see her, or am I proving I want something? Because when a woman feels truly seen, not for what everyone else notices, but for what most people miss, she doesn't just reply, she remembers, not the line, but the presence that carried it. Now that you've seen the deeper truth behind texting, how curiosity draws her in, how anticipation holds her attention, and how presence transforms a compliment, it's time to see the larger picture. This was never about texting. It's about the man behind the screen. Because texting isn't just a tool, it's a mirror. It reflects your energy, your patience, your intention. Every message you send carries a piece of who you are. And when that message comes from clarity instead of craving, from self-respect instead of self-doubt, something shifts. You no longer speak to be heard. You speak to be felt. You no longer chase replies. You command presence. That's the Stoic Shift. You stop needing fast answers. You stop explaining your worth. You stop trying to be liked. And instead, you start leading the rhythm of connection with restraint, with reflection, with calm authority. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to persuade others. He wrote to discipline himself. And that's what texting becomes in the Stoic frame, a daily practice in emotional discipline, a place where you don't prove but embody, where you don't seek reaction but create resonance. So next time you type a message, ask yourself, does this reflect the man I'm becoming? If the answer is yes, send it. If it's not, rewrite it or delete it. Not because you fear silence, but because you respect your energy. Because in a world obsessed with being seen, The man who texts from stillness becomes unforgettable, not for his words, but for the presence between them. If this message reached you, don't just scroll past it. Sit with it. Breathe with it. Then ask yourself the question that most men avoid. When was the last time I let my silence say more than my words ever could? If you've ever deleted a message just to protect your clarity, comment narrative control below. If you've ever typed something raw, real, and decided not to send it, not out of fear, but out of self-respect, then you're already walking the Stoic path. You're already learning that restraint is not weakness. It's strength that refuses to beg. Now I want to hear from you. What's the one text you never sent, but still remember? What silence did you choose that changed everything? Drop it below, not for likes, but for legacy. Because your story might be the one another man needs to break free from the craving for replies and step into clarity. And if you found value in this, share it with a friend, a brother, or your younger self. Someone who needs to know you don't need more lines, you need less noise. Let your pause be your punctuation. Let your presence carry forward in the quiet. Because the men who master stillness are the ones whose words echo long after they've stopped speaking.